an urn in the background, Thomas, or what?
No, it's some stupid lamp Mandy found at
Oh,
the thrift store. She brought it up and she's like, "Oh, can you hang this up in our Quinn's room?" And I was like, "Later." So it's been sitting there all day.
I got a notification that we're live.
All right, man.
So
I'm
we
not
must be
seeing it
live.
on my end, but we must be. We
I,
must
I've,
be.
I've never seen that, so
Oh, I got it too.
Yeah,
Yeah, man, we're there.
we're on.
We're good to go. So,
all right.
obviously, there's a lot to talk about, but should we start with the first game of the season?
I think we ought to.
Yeah, we should. That was longest away. It already feels like it was a long time ago. So we gotta talk about what we remember about that ancient history of the game.
I'll start with this. I've considered it long and hard, and after careful consideration, I am going to turn in my Cowboys fan card and be a full-time Bills fan. I'm just kidding. I can't even say that.
I feel like I was seeing the death of my friend
Yeah.
on YouTube live stream.
You're just gonna throw away your whole life, everything you've lived for.
Everything.
Oh man! I mean, to be fair, it would have been a happier life. To be completely
I
fair.
don't know, man. I mean, recently, yeah, but the Bills were bad for a long time.
Yeah, you trade in history for a future, huh? If you make that trade.
Yeah. No, it's just painful, but no, I've been a like halfway in, halfway out of the closet Bills hater. But Josh Allen's really good.
He's really good.
He's really good.
I think.
And,
sorry, I was just gonna say. I think of all the quarterbacks in Week 1, he's one of the most like already in his groove. Didn't need. He was on it from the first drive, kind of thing.
Yeah. They played super well, and obviously, like, the score wasn't what they wanted to be in the second half, but they didn't let that get them down, and Josh Allen just took over the game in the second half, and the Rams were never felt back in at any point from the get go in the second half, and there were. Yeah, the defense stepped up, started causing a little bit more turnovers for Stafford. They were losing the turnover battle, and then Stafford threw some picks, and it got ugly. But I mean, it was just an all-around beatdown. I was glad to see that they weren't depending on Josh Allen in the first half to run the ball. I liked how they were using. Whatever his name, Singletary. Is it Devin Singletary?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Zach Moss. Like, that's not how they used him last year. And I feel like they really learned from their lessons last year and were like, all right, we're going to commit to using our running backs to run. And I think that the Rams were not ready for that. And yeah, so it took them by complete surprise, and by me surprise as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they did. And when the Bills were able to run the ball effectively, especially going to the second half, obviously, they just the second half really they dominated in every facet of the game, offense and defense. Like Josh Allen turned it on, they were moving the ball at will, and then the Rams just couldn't do anything really. The second half, and like you said, it started to get ugly with Matt Stafford's play. I think a lot of people were surprised. I was surprised. I thought the Rams would come out swinging, but I don't know. There's lots of talk about Matt Stafford's. I think it's his elbow that everyone's been worried about. Or
yeah,
how much do you guys think was just rust and just getting into the groove, Super Bowl hangover? How much of it do you think was actually, physical situation when it comes to quarterback play for Matt Stafford?
Well,
Oh, go ahead, Thomas.
I know they've been talking about his elbow like for months now, but every time it was brought up, especially by their staff, they really downplayed it and said it wasn't a big deal. It's just noteworthy, but they made it sound like it's going to be a normal season, and apparently it was bothering him like towards the end of last year. And it's not so much like a specific injury; it's just kind of wearing out, and it was getting sore throughout the year, and they were just keeping watch of it. So I don't know. I feel like that's a really easy scapegoat, especially for a fan base, after a performance like that. But I think he just played bad. I don't know if it is, Super Bowl hangover, he's not hungry anymore, or if it just was rust, but that felt a lot like a Lions Matt Stafford game. I don't think we saw anything that bad. He had a couple bad quarters last year in games and stuff like that, but he really couldn't get it going the whole game, which I was surprised. We made our predictions in our group chat, before the game, and I think a majority of us were going Rams, but man, were we wrong.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a mix of both. There were times where in a clean pocket or clean-ish pocket, he just completely missed the deep ball, and I think that probably has a lot to do with the elbow. But on the same token, I don't feel like they did enough to protect against the pass rush.
Mm-hmm.
Von Miller was all over him.
Oh man, Von Miller, dude.
Yeah,
he looked like he was 25 again.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that they need to work out around Matt Stafford. He's had games like that before, like the Titans game last year, where he just looked terrible. But you don't expect that week one. You've been preparing for the Bills all year, and maybe lack of hunger. I thought the reason I really liked the Rams in that game, the biggest reason was like I felt like Matt Stafford was still kind of getting a little disrespected after winning the Super Bowl, being like, well, you just joined a super team, almost getting the Kevin Durant treatment, and like there were like tears that came out from. I can't one that comes out like every year where the vote.
It's like Mike something. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and
Russell
tier 2, and Justin Herbert was tier 1. Didn't even make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Or they're like people still just like the Lions days are like really ingrained in people's minds still, and people don't give Matt Stafford the credit. I thought there'd still be that hunger, and I think there still will be. There's now, they just got smacked around, and they play Atlanta next week, so this is their chance to bounce back and prove, that they are still hungry and beat a definitely no one doubts an inferior team. So we'll see. We will see with that.
Yeah, I'm expecting a beatdown. Yeah, and I think a lot of it too is something that we saw across quite a few teams in week one. It's just a lot of just feels like they're just weren't quite prepared for week one of football, whether it was not playing your starters in the preseason or just overall just kind of felt, a little sloppy to start the season. I feel like we saw that with the Rams and some other teams. Just trying to name a few that I don't know that kind of underperformed. Well, we can talk about this because it was similar where, Josh Allen, he looked about as prepared and ready as any quarterback in week one. I'd say one quarterback that looked probably as prepared was Patrick Mahomes against the Cardinals, who just torched the Cardinals, man, like scoring at will, moving the ball like crazy. They looked completely ready, but The Cardinals, they reminded me of the Rams. They were out of sorts. They looked
worse than the Rams, I think.
Oh, they definitely looked worse. Oh, much worse, I would say. And it was a rough showing there. So that's another one that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's because Kyler Murray didn't do his in-home film study. He was playing Call of Duty.
I know you're saying that as a joke, but I truly believe it is. I watched the highlights, and there's one specific play I saw where he had a linebacker out wide, and he didn't even look. That's the thing. They're set up against the defense. He has plenty of time to read the defense and see what their play is going to be. He never looked at an unguarded linebacker lined up on the edge, and he just laid him out. He never looked during the play either. He was looking at who knows what, whoever it was, but he just got sacked. And I feel like that's the kind of stuff where if he had known and watched his what's the word I'm looking for? What do they watch? Film.
Film.
Gosh. If he had watched his film, he would have known that play was. I don't know. I felt like Kyler was. I don't know. I've kind of felt like this for a while, that he's kind of got that attitude where, he's been in the best in his organization and whatever conference or league or tournament he's in his whole life, and he's very comfortable with that and doesn't feel like he needs to put the work in that other players do.
Yeah, and I'll come out and say that I think this whole thing is overblown because they found that snip in his contract and it got to the media. I think, it's just something funny. Although I did see a meme about how someone tracked every Call of Duty double XP weekend and found there's a correlation between his QB rating going down on those weekends, which is funny stuff for sure. I think it's hilarious, but no, I just think that's another team, and I think a lot of it with these teams coming out a bit rusty has to do with coaching. I think most of it has to do with coaching, to be honest. Not that every team that comes out a little slower out of the gates is a bad coach. It's coached poorly, I should mean. We know a lot of them, Sean McVay is a great coach. The Rams came out slow. I think they're going to get it together, but in today's day and age of the preseason's downplayed, it's not viewed as vital like it maybe once was or should be, and some players do use it. This is kind of what happens. But yeah, Patrick Mahomes, he looked electric. He looked like he didn't miss Tyreek Hill whatsoever, which is a real disappointment to me, if I'm being completely honest. I really thought there's actually going to be missing him a little bit, but doesn't look like it in week one. So that was a beatdown.
Travis Kelce, man, it's going to be Pat and Travis all season.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but someone is having a good time with Tyreek Hill, and that's Tua. I didn't watch the game, I'll be honest, but I'm not that surprised by the outcome. Just knowing there's been that whole narrative about how the Patriots don't have an offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator, and it's just like whoever wants to coach, whatever, no one is play caller, and so I'm I don't want to. Well, I'm worried about the Patriots, but not in a personal way, more just in a I feel bad for you kind of way when I say worried. I don't know if they might win 2 games. I'm really concerned about the Patriots and that showing against Miami. I don't know, man.
If they do only end up winning 2 games, it might be a start of a brand new era for the Patriots really soon, because that's not a franchise that I think is accustomed or is going to handle losing on that level, no matter how many Super Bowls the coaching the team has earned in the past. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think people are concerned, but the Patriots lose to the Dolphins every year, even when they were good, and the Dolphins are better than they were. It was hard to grade Tua on that game too, just because we don't know what we're looking at. It was only 20-7, so it wasn't like the highest scoring game. But yeah, I like only scoring 7 points. Man, I don't know. Whatever that situation's got going on down there or up there, I guess.
It's got bad vibes, that's for sure.
Bad vibes.
Absolutely.
I think the Patriots and their fans are due for a little drought.
Yeah.
I think they've gotten enough reign of success.
That's why I didn't want to say worry, because I'm like, well, you got 6 rings in 20 years, so you can suck for another 30 now if you want. That's totally fine.
Oh man, they're not going to have sympathy from any team in the league. That's for sure. No, I don't. That's one team where the NFL's better when they suck. But okay, so another storyline, how crazy was it that we saw in week 1, and correct me if I'm excluding if there were more, but I counted 2 overtime games in week 1, and both of them were marked by poor kicking.
Oh, it was atrocious.
Yeah.
Astounding.
That doink. Doink was
cheered around the
loud.
world.
Like,
oh, that was crazy.
All right, help me jog my memory. So it goes to overtime.
And we're talking right now, for those listening, we're talking about the Bengals versus the Steelers first of the 2 overtime games.
So let's go before overtime. Joe Burrow had 5 turnovers.
Yeah, 4 interceptions and a fumble, right?
Yeah, it was just playing awful. And then he scores a game-tying touchdown in the last second to none other than Jamar Chase. And I was like, nice, the Bengals won. What a clutch play by Joe Burrow right there.
That's right. And he
blocked point. And I was like, no way.
That's right. And that's where that kicker's confidence was just gone.
And that was only the beginning of his problems.
I don't know about you guys, but if I were a kicker, I mean, obviously it sucks to miss in any way, but I wouldn't lose that much confidence from an incredibly blocked punt. Yeah, if you miss, you can be bummed. But when it's blocked, it's like, what else could you do?
Right.
But dude, that guy threw in the towel right then and there.
Yeah. To me, I think that game should have ended a tie. No one deserved that game. Well, Joe Burrow should be ashamed of himself for all the turnovers that he committed in that game. But Mitch Trubisky should also be ashamed of himself for having to go to overtime, getting 5 turnovers, and not being able to put the Bengals away. You got to be ashamed of yourself for that too. I don't know, you won Steelers, but I mean, I wouldn't be that proud of it.
So Austin, for those listening, if you're the best at recalling it, go into overtime and then how crazy things got once it was in OT.
I was in and out of it, but so the Bengals won the toss, if my memory serves correct, and they go down, and dude, I don't remember.
So, okay, that's why, honestly, don't feel bad. I was asking you because I don't remember. There was so much kicking that I can't keep straight.
The thing I remember most is the big doink, that because I was like, oh, the Steelers won, and it just goes right outside and then just smacks the upright, and it was so.
So all I can say for sure, and I don't know if I'm missing drives in between, but I know the Bengals had it in field goal range, kicked it, and just missed again after they had the blocked field goal to send it to OT.
Yeah.
Then the Steelers get it in field goal range, and then it boinks on the upright.
Right.
Then the Bengals get it again, and they once again get it into enemy territory. And I don't remember if I think they didn't even attempt a field goal. I think they ended up punting.
They punted because they got
Punted, yeah.
field goal range.
And then the Steelers got it and finally kicked a field goal to end the game. If my memory serves,
That sounds right. Yeah.
Just wild. So in succession, counting the end of the fourth quarter, that was 3 missed extra points or field goal attempts, leading to finally the made one in OT. I mean, that's just. I mean, for a week 1 game, one of 2 overtime games, it doesn't get much better than that. I don't know.
I really enjoyed watching that game, even though it was terrible.
I mean, you're watching like a train wreck on both sides. That's the thing, but
yeah,
it's hilarious.
They win these games, and everyone's like so excited. Oh, that was such an amazing game. And it's like, it was a crap game, but it was so bad on both ends that it made it exciting, kind of thing. A lot of people were talking about the BYU Baylor game. I watched the highlights, and it's the same story. Yeah, BYU won. It was awesome. Dude, both teams sucked. BYU just sucked for less time, I guess. But
right.
Now,
that was the story of week 1, honestly. Like, it was just a lot of sloppy football, and whoever just was less sloppy won.
So I want to ask you guys, because, we've heard for years now in the league, players don't want preseason games.
Yeah.
But then week 1, I feel like this year's week 1 was pretty dang bad. But that's the thing is, if there's no, and I think teams obviously don't utilize the preseason games, but they could, because they could play starters. I understand why they don't, as far as protection and health and whatnot. But wouldn't that just turn the first few weeks into preseason games, basically, and then we're just gypped out a couple weeks of good football every season?
I mean, the difference is that the games count. So, so it's not like true preseason. I don't think the players care. Like, they're like, we'll sacrifice that, and we'll just hope that that everyone's doing it, and we are just the better team. We're just more talented, so we'll win out. And just hope that the other team also didn't practice.
Well, that's the thing. I would understand if they got rid of the preseason, but allowed for a longer camp, so they could actually figure their crap out instead of just traveling and doing these games that don't matter. But I don't know.
Well, yeah, and there's some players that are playing in the preseason. One I know who regularly I'm not saying they're playing every game in the preseason. No real franchise starter does that, and no one's asking him to do that. But there's a lot of players who aren't playing a single down in the preseason anymore, not a single drive or anything. But one who I know played this year, and I think almost always does, is Tom Brady. And if we're going to use that as a segue, now, again, I'll say I was in and out of this game following what was happening. I can't say that how good Tom Brady looked. I didn't see many of their drives. All I was definitely following was the score, which didn't look like it was moving much at all throughout the first half. Fill me in, Austin. Was Tom Brady sucking, or was the Cowboys defense stepping up? And then you can talk about the other side of the ball, too.
I wouldn't say Tom Brady sucked. I would say that a lot of the team just needed to gel. What helped the Cowboys was their left tackle got injured in the first half, and Micah Parsons just ripped that tackle a new one, and Tom Brady just was getting sacked, they'd get to the red zone or close to it, and and they could score a touchdown, but Michael Parsons just was like a one-man wrecking crew. The Cowboys defense was playing well. I don't think it was a Brady issue. Julio Jones didn't look like normal Julio Jones, but was pretty close. He looked a lot better than he did in Tennessee. But I think there's just a lot of they didn't bring as many guys back as they did last year from the Super Bowl win. So while Tom Brady played, I don't think everyone did, and there was still a lot of things that they, as an offense, need to work on. Tom Brady did throw an interception. That was his fault. But other than that, I thought Tom Brady looked fine. The Cowboys defense just honestly was playing really well. Give them the credit. It's the other side of the ball where it was.
Yeah. See, once again, you need to fill me in the blanks. All I know is two things. Three. Cowboys lost the game. Dak's injured. And then the one that has me scratching my head, you need to help me out, is CeeDee Lamb got 11 targets but caught the ball twice. Apparently that happened.
Yeah, man. So, dude, it was awful. Honestly, so Dak didn't get injured till the fourth quarter, so that's not really an excuse for anything. They were sucking the whole time. But the Buccaneers weren't afraid of any of the other receivers. All the rookies and the new guys that Dak's throwing to weren't very good. And they're like, all right, beat us with them. And they were double teaming CeeDee Lamb the whole time. Dak, I wouldn't say it was on CeeDee. There were a couple that might have been on him, but Dak just missed him. Or threw it to the wrong shoulder, threw it in the wrong, just in the wrong area, and he was getting covered by a good corner and Antoine Winfield. And so it was just, there just isn't enough things to be afraid of in the Cowboys offense for CeeDee Lamb to have made a difference. They were just beat us with, I can't remember the freaking wide receivers' names. Whoever. Beat us with Dalton Schultz. Beat us with Noah Brown. Beat us with whoever. We're just going to take CeeDee away and, try it. And that couldn't hit the broadside of a barn that game. And then he hurt his hand, and it didn't matter. The game was over anyway. And so the silver lining, someone that was unexpectedly good, but, it didn't matter because they got down, was Ezekiel Elliott looked normal. He wasn't fumbling. He was running with a lot of power. He was getting big gains at the beginning of the game. Then the Cowboys started falling behind. And as Kellen Moore does, he gets away from the run game too quickly, and it just all just fell apart from there. And and then was also lost a lineman to injury.
And that hurts so bad after losing Tyron Smith already in the preseason.
Yeah, I mean the offensive line already isn't very good, and so it was tough sledding. But I was surprised at how good the running game was, at least at the start. The stats didn't reflect it because they abandoned the run after a while. But I was impressed with how with how good Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard, they'd use them. What drove me crazy was the play calling. There was all these weird trick plays that were not well executed. I was like, okay, you wrote these, but how often did you practice them? And, I don't know. I think there's a difference between being a creative play caller and just being a trick play designer. Andy Reid is a play designer where the Cowboys will do 3 or 4 gimmick plays a game and they never work. It's way too much running around backwards and flipping the ball here and there. And I was like, how often did you guys practice? Because it doesn't look like you practiced it that often. We're just to throw this in there whenever, just for a rainy day. And they use it.
Yeah.
They use it in the first quarter. I'm like, that's a play you use in the fourth quarter. So like, drove me nuts. There's a lot of problems with the Cowboys offense, and there's a lot of rumors about them getting a backup, getting a new quarterback because Dak's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. And I'm like, just don't.
Yeah.
Tank suck. And it sucks that we paid Dak, and Zeke, but like it's like we gotta have the number one overall pick, or at least man, because we have nobody.
Yeah, it's rough. Well, I did see some news reports. Apparently, Jerry or some people are saying that Dak might only miss 4 to 6, potentially. So I guess are you saying like in your guys' division, Dak out 4 to 6 weeks? You think you guys are out? Like the season's over, or do you think you'll be able to steal a few while he's gone and fight your way into the playoffs?
The schedule is weaker. I don't know though. With Dak, I didn't think we'd win the division. I think I mentioned to you over the summer. Like I think the Eagles have the division. I don't foresee even with Dak them making the playoffs, even if he didn't get injured. So I don't really think it. I thought we were limited from the playoffs before the season even started, and then watching that with Dak, I'm like, we got to play better than this. Like the offense was terrible. It was awful.
So do you think, like, I guess looking at the long-term scope and outlook, what is your satisfaction with Dak? Are you blaming a lot of this on him, and he's been injury prone at this point. Obviously, this injury is pretty unfortunate. I mean, contact like that happens.
Yeah.
But I guess, are you hot or cold on Dak and the future, QB1 position of the Cowboys?
I've never been super high on Dak. I've always said like he's capable of winning a Super Bowl, but I've never, ever since his rookie year, and everyone was like freaking out, and he won Rookie of the Year. They went 13-3. I was like, man, his style of play isn't sustainable. And now that the weapons are gone, I was seeing it. Like, it doesn't look pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think with a good coordinator, he would be good. Like, I think he could play at a high level if he had an Andy Reid or somebody, calling plays for him. I think the two biggest people that need to leave, I'm actually more down on Kellen Moore than I am on Mike McCarthy. But yeah, I think there's got to be a change in leadership. Like, we fired Jason Garrett just to hire like his protege. He learned everything about offense from Jason Garrett. So like we still have him basically on our team. So like it was like just Jason Garrett's child.
His
coaching.
legacy won't go away.
So, yeah, I know. So it's like, what's the freaking difference? So I think I'm going to pray tonight. Maybe I'll start an Instagram where I post a picture of Sean Payton every day, and hope that Sean Payton becomes head coach of the Dallas Cowboys.
That's what we're shooting for, huh?
That's what we're shooting
Tank for Sean. All right.
I'd rather see a coaching change than get rid of Dak. But if the right guy came along in the draft,
yeah,
I'd be like, all right, let's find a place for you, Dak. But that's much harder now that he's got a contract. So now I'm like, now we're stuck with him. And I think he's capable of winning a Super Bowl, but he needs a much better play caller, something that's going to play to his strengths a lot better than Kellen Moore can.
And I think weapons is a big thing too. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb's great, but clearly they don't have a connection as consistent as anyone would like. They could use help
I think you should need a number 2, though. With Amari there, things were different.
Yeah, exactly.
And other weapons too. You guys had more. You lost more than just Amari Cooper in the offseason.
Cedric Wilson, who was an awesome number 3, and you can say what you want about Amari Cooper, and the media is a lot higher on him than we are, but he was a good route runner, and he took attention from other people, and so it doesn't loss. And
to lose him and not really fill that vacancy, that's rough.
Yeah. It's guys like it was a bunch of guys that had never played, like Chris Collinsworth was just saying it over and over again, just like, these guys have never played snap. This is their first NFL game. CeeDee Lamb and a bunch of dudes that were undrafted or mid-round draft picks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what are you gonna do?
Well, who knows?
Maybe
they find someone.
Are you on the let's just turn this into a rebuild year train? Is that?
Yeah, but I feel like I'm in the minority.
Yeah.
Obviously, Jerry Jones and management isn't going to admit that, but I feel like I'm like, I don't know. I'm isolated from other Cowboys fans. I don't know how they feel, but I'm like, come on, you guys. Not even Jerry can sell us on this year, man.
Yeah.
It's our year every year, but
sucks,
come on,
man. Week 1.
Y'all all know in our heart that it's not.
This year's not our year. Oh no, I never hear him say it. No.
I like up until the Chiefs game last year, about mid-season, I liked the Cowboys' odds of at least making it to the Super Bowl, or at least making the NFC Championship game for the first time in 25 years. But this year, he showed his true colors in that Chiefs game last year, where I was like, this is the worst game plan I may have ever seen. And then it's just gotten worse from there. And they just don't have the roster. There's way too many good teams in the league for the Cowboys to have a chance.
It'll be hard. Maybe a couple years ago you can still take the division. Maybe even last year, but the Eagles look pretty good to start. So
yeah,
I think you might be right.
And I mean, we get speaking of that of the division, the Eagles looked good, but then again, it was Detroit, and they only beat them by 3. But I mean, the Eagles got better, and it's hard to judge because the Washington, what are they, the Commanders now or whatever, they beat the Jaguars, so it's like, well, how much can you put your hat on that? But then the Giants hire Brian Daboll, and all of a sudden they're beating the Titans, and Derrick Henry looks like, just Eddie Lacy out there,
And Saquon Barkley looks like Saquon Barkley that we remember.
Yeah, and so that was a surprise. That I did not expect that. At least that high of a turnaround to be able, it was close, and the Titans did beat themselves in that game a little bit, but for the Giants to have even been in that game, it speaks volumes to how important coaching is. And so if Dak had Brian Daboll as a coach, I would be a lot more confident in our chances. But the Giants looked really good and played an elite team, and took away their biggest weapon.
Maybe it almost feels like your NFC East and my NFC West just traded places.
I'll hold off on that. We'll have to see a little bit more of that, because I think we all know that it's the AFC West that holds that crown now.
Yeah, I mean, the NFC West really, this week at least, we're like, yes, take the mantle. We're the inferior West division.
Did you guys see? Probably not, but the Seahawks tweeted out and made an Instagram post before. It was Sunday night at the end of the day, and it just had them at the top of the division standings. They're like, oh, that was easy, kind of thing. And it was almost like humorous, like because they knew they weren't going to be there for very long. But then obviously, after Monday's turnout, they did it again, and they were like, update, and then like we were still there. I thought it was pretty funny. But yeah, I think the Giants, you know, obviously there's definitely a ceiling at quarterback, but in a lot of other areas they looked way better than they have been. So you've got some serious league contenders in your division now, Austin. You've got, I think, the Eagles and the Giants. Obviously the Giants could be a flash in the pan, but lots of things looked a lot better than from what we've seen from the Giants, especially the running game, obviously, in quite a while. So
yeah, it remains to be seen. I mean, like, Saquon Barkley has to stay healthy, but I mean, like, we can see what he looks like when he is. So I you know, he's worth the roster spot. And but yeah, like, it appears that the Giants have their best coach since Tom Coughlin, and so, you know, who knows? It's still week 1. Who knows? Same with Washington with Carson Wentz.
mm-hmm.
There's still a lot of football, and they weren't playing like the greatest competition. So what it remains to be seen. It could still be, you know, a slugfest, and the Cowboys could be mathematically in it till the end. But, you know, in the end, it's like, no NFC East team's going super far in the playoffs. So
yeah. Well, it's only week 1, and today's Overreaction Tuesday, so we're gonna assume what we've seen is what's gonna be, and that's just how it is. But if that's the case, then this last game we have to talk about is it's just not good.
Okay, I'm telling you, man, I've been like giddy excited.
I know you have.
To talk to you about this.
I know you have, Thomas. Don't worry.
Before we talk about this game, I just want to briefly mention the Packers game.
Sure. Yeah.
Just briefly mention Packers Vikings. I think we all kind of know the narrative, and most people do at this point. It really seems like Aaron is being Aaron, where, you know, they have a few drops, which obviously they were really bad drops, especially in the first quarter, that first deep throw, just completely dropped by I can't even remember his name.
Yeah, I don't think many know his name because he's the rookie.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. Watson, I don't know.
Exactly. But, dude, Aaron just has this. He's great, man. Don't get me wrong. But he really has an issue with giving up. Whether it's on a game or on a drive or, you know, on a player. But, man, sometimes
this is where I'm going to come in and say, look, are we really going to have the same Overreaction Tuesday that we had last year?
No.
A little bit, because I mean, well, okay, maybe we here aren't, but I feel like a lot of the media already is like raising serious red flags about the Packers when, you know, what we saw last year was probably uglier than what was this year in week 1, right? Where they just got destroyed. So I don't know. You might be right, Thomas, about that giving up or whatnot. I mean, maybe.
We obviously heard, didn't he say on the Pat McAfee show or something a few weeks ago, like, yeah, his receivers need to step it up. Like, he's not impressed. Which I think is perfectly fine to say. I mean, if anything, that motivates them to. I mean, it's such an Aaron Rodgers thing to say, is maybe how I should word it. But I don't know, man. It's like, okay, like if you know, some people argue, well, he's teaching him a lesson. Like, they got to step up if they want to get the ball thrown to him and stuff. And that's great and all, but I really don't. As smart and as good as Aaron Rodgers is, I wouldn't give him that much credit. I think he's just being Aaron, gets frustrated and gets pouty. And especially if you're trying to teach him a lesson like that, don't do it in a regular season game. Like,
wait, so what you're saying he's just not throwing him the ball because
after the first quarter, he was not giving his receivers anything. He was going to tight ends. He was throwing the ball away. It wasn't until like third or fourth quarter that he targeted that rookie receiver again, and I think he only targeted him that one other time. Where obviously, plays break down and sometimes it just isn't an option, but I don't know. I feel like the narrative the whole game and even afterwards is like he was clearly just didn't trust them and wasn't willing to in situations where he could have. Where it's like, what are you going to do next week then? Because you've got the same receivers.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't watch the game. I haven't even really seen highlights except for that I did see the bad dropped go away touchdown. So I really don't know. But all I know is I feel like the Packers are there with the Cowboys now, where the media is just ready to pounce the second things look wrong and draw a whole lot of stories. So I can't really speak to it, whether it's pouty Aaron or just a bad game. But
they're still going to probably be in the playoffs. I have no doubt that they'll be contenders for the playoffs.
I think the Rams and the Packers are two ones to pump the brakes on and not freak out about. Are two teams where like they'll be fine.
Yeah,
they'll make the playoffs. Like not overreact about that. Their poor showing.
And honestly, should it be mentioned that the Vikings look pretty good?
Well, the Vikings do look good, and there's nothing you can say about that. They've taken an offense that's shown a lot of promise over years, and their new coaching staff seems to be dialing it to 11.
Yeah,
obviously,
man.
Justin Jefferson. It didn't take a week one dominant performance to know he was great, but he's
Really
the
good.
real freaking deal. He's super, super good. So I think I don't know if the Packers, I think they have still a great chance to make the playoffs, but they definitely aren't a slam dunk to win the division at least, and not so much because I'm worried about them, but the Vikings have seemed to have taken the next step so far.
But here's to another year of the Vikings being well above average and their offense being well above average, but Kirk Cousins getting zero credit.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see, man. Yeah, you're right. Justin Jefferson, man, that guy's amazing. It's all
the whole team on his back.
How does he keep just getting the ball so much? We'll die before we give Kirk Cousins the credit for throwing him the ball, man.
Kirk Cousins, who's that?
It's just flying to him somehow.
All right, let's just go to it, man. Carter.
I actually decided I don't want to anymore.
No.
I don't want to.
I just want Austin, if you feel differently, but I just want Parker to have the floor for a minute.
You want me?
I want you to have the floor, dude.
Yeah, you're just gonna enjoy this.
I won't poison the well. Go ahead, Parker.
Look. Here's what it was. All right, it was some of the shizziest week one coaching or any game, week anything coaching I've ever seen. Like true ineptitude by, luckily, a first-time head coach. So you can give him a little bit of leeway. It was sloppy all over the place. But everyone is pointing to the end of the game. And for those listening, I was there. I watched it. It was so confusing to me what was happening in the last 20, 40 seconds of the fourth quarter, down by one on the 46-yard line, 4th and 5. Everyone, all the people next to me, and of course I'm surrounded by Seahawks fans, we were ready for Russell Wilson to do what Russell Wilson does, man, and convert.
Even Pete after the game was like, I thought they were going to go for it. Why would you not? It's Russell Wilson.
Yeah. After Javonte turned nothing into something, got 9 yards and made it 4th and 5, I was like, all right, this is where Russell Wilson earns his money. And he didn't even get a chance. And they kicked what would have been the second longest field goal made in NFL history. They attempted that rather than give the ball to the quarterback. So that was okay, that was almost the cherry on top. The very last cherry on top was our coach, calling timeouts when they're kneeling the ball. That was like just actually putting nails in the coffin.
I think you're forgetting the whole wasting like 45 seconds before that. Too.
Well, here's the deal with the time management though, because everyone's pointing to wasting the clock, which I get. It doesn't make sense but I don't really ding him for that because it's all built into the field goal attempt, right?
He was all in on the field goal from the beginning of that time window. So
the trick is the field goal makes no sense at all, and the clock wouldn't make sense. But if you're going to kick a field goal, then you want to leave as little time on the clock as possible. So that's why you excuse the time management, because it leads into an idiotic decision. Yeah. Anyway, but here's the deal. That was the end of it. I say that was the cherry on top because everyone wants to point to that, but the game was sloppy well before that. False start penalties, delay of game penalties. Even when it wasn't delay of game, it was snapping it at the last second, and the defense was jumping the count.
Lots of personal fouls too.
Fouls. Oh my gosh, it was ugly.
It was sloppy.
And then the results of that, which really, we had 2 fumbles and consecutive drives on the 1-yard line, which I didn't know until today. That's the first time that's happened. That's the first time in a game that there's been 2 fumbles on the 1-yard line since 1991 in a single game, let alone consecutive drives, which is what happened last night. We had a go-ahead touchdown, which was called back because of a false start penalty. So we lost by 1 point, right? So any one of these things, you take it away, the result is different. So it was a sloppy game for sure. But what I will say is lots of them are chalked up to coaching errors, not being prepared. I thought Russell Wilson, he didn't come out of the gate, firing on all cylinders, but I thought he looked fine. Mm-hmm. They made some good plays. The running game was able to get going in the second half. The defense started slow. They looked good in the second half. Really, in the second half, everything looked great, except we couldn't get the ball in the end zone. And we kept fumbling it, and we decided to kick it instead of go for it. Yeah. So it sucked. It hurt to watch. It hurt to see Russell lose in Seattle, but we shot ourselves in the foot like 4 different times. You're not going to win when you play like that. So we're going to have to get a lot better. The good news is we can improve because they're all fixable things. It's not lack of talent. It's not this or that. The bad news is we're in a division where we don't have a lot of time to fix these things. Like, they need to get their crap figured out this week, because if we play like that against Mahomes, Herbert, Derek Carr, we're gonna get destroyed. We're gonna get chased out of the stadium. So that's my take on the game. It was a shame, darn shame.
Yeah.
But hey, I am glad for the Seahawks. As the Seahawks fan next to me said to me during the game, and we were kind of roasting each other back and forth. He said, "Hey, man, this is our Super Bowl right here. We know after this, there's not much waiting for us. Yeah. Like, this is it."
That's true, man. I think I would really like to know like the decibel levels of the game yesterday versus like the Super Bowls, or not even the Super Bowls, like the NFC Championship games we've won, where it actually was a home crowd.
I kid you guys not. It was unbelievably loud in there. And I've gone to 2 Denver games, including another week 1 opener, just like this one was in Seattle, where we were fresh off a Super Bowl win. And Denver, is a loud stadium. This was unlike anything I could even comprehend. It felt like the ground was shaking. Everyone was going nuts. So it was a tough environment. Yeah. It was a tough environment, but we still really underperformed. And I put 80 to 85% of it on Coach Hackett. He needs to get better. He needs to figure out what it means to be a coach in this league, because that wasn't it.
Well, the thing that's surprising to me is he's been an offensive coordinator. So that situation he was in shouldn't have felt new. He's been the one in the head coach's ear on situations like that for years. So it was so uncharacteristic of an offensive coordinator slash. I mean, same thing. We got to give him a break because it was his first game as a head coach. But dude, the cameras showed him on the sideline, and he looked like deer in the headlights. Like he literally looked like he froze up mentally and chose the worst possible option of many options he kind of had at the end there.
And I'll say this, like, yeah, you're right. And none of this, what I'm going to say, is an excuse, but it's a bit unique where he's coming from an offensive coordinator position in Green Bay where he wasn't calling the plays as offensive coordinator. Matt LaFleur's calling the plays.
That's true.
In Green Bay. And now he's the head coach in Denver, and he has also taken upon himself to call the plays on offense. So he's adding an offensive coordinator's job when he didn't necessarily have as offensive coordinator, and he's coaching the entire team.
Yeah.
And again, he needs to be ready. If he's going to do that, he needs to be able to handle it, and he didn't week one. So he's got to figure out what to do.
There's two, I think, possible outcomes as far as he goes. I think either he keeps sucking and he loses his job fairly soon, or he learns from this and whips himself into shape and never allows situations like that to happen again, right? I don't, especially with all the flack he's been getting since last night. I think he's got the picture like, okay, I really got to step it up or it's not going to work. So hopefully he steps it up, kind of thing.
That's my hope as well. That's all we can hope for.
Here's one thing. And I'm sure you're not either, but I'm not. If I were a Broncos fan, I wouldn't be super worried. I think, the team and the talent on the team, there's plenty of it. Obviously, your division's super competitive, so hopefully you figure it out quick, kind of thing. But I think one thing that was really promising, kind of like you said, Russell didn't have like an MVP worthy game, but we saw a lot more of Russell's play style and personality in that game already than I think we've seen at the Seahawks for a long time, if not ever. Lots of you can definitely tell. And I heard something where Thursday afternoon, Russell and the quarterback room and the head coach or the offensive coordinator, I think it was just Russell and the head coach, were in a room together going over plays for like 7 or 8 hours straight. And, there obviously people were excited about them working things together. But, something I've never seen Russell do as a Seahawk is those little shovel passes and those, little, I don't know, just I can see
the little dump off passes to Javonte that were just happening over. Well, you're right, but I'm not sure that's.
The Seahawks never ran screenplays where the Broncos ran 3 or 4 and they worked perfectly. I don't know. I feel like Russell definitely has a lot. Just looking at that offense and what they played, I think Russell definitely has a lot more influence on it, and I think that's what you want because that's going to really allow Russell. Of course, we've got some kinks to work out, but I think this is a place where Russell can really thrive.
Yeah, well, like you said, I'm glad it happened on Monday night. I'm glad it was such a big game. Glad that it's on the news cycle, so hopefully everyone got the message loud and clear in that building, mostly the coaching staff. That's not going to cut it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just say something about my Seahawks, right? Proud of them. They went out and did it. But I have no hope that will last. And I don't think anyone has any high expectations for the Seahawks even after that. But a few things that I did like out of the Seahawks was I mean, obviously, Geno Smith played super well first half. I mean, he did fantastic. Ended the game 119 QB rating. You know, played really well. But I still worry that that's the ceiling for Geno. You know, last year in a couple of the games, it's the whole like fourth quarter playing from behind thing. We just haven't seen that out of Geno. He had opportunities to make something happen last year, but he didn't piece it together, and it was never fully his fault or anything. But I just worry, you know, yeah, he played great, but we still don't know what his ceiling is, and chances are it's going to be low, or not much higher than what we saw last night. But I'm happy. Geno's cool, man. I think he's the perfect fit for the team this year. Not complaining. I think another huge thing is our defense. Obviously, stopping, you know, forcing fumbles on the 1 yard line, two possessions in a row is impressive. It's really good. But I also didn't like the plays that the Broncos were running there. I mean, Russ was in shotgun on one of them. You're inches away from the goal line. And yeah, Russell's not 6'5", so, you know, his leaping over the offensive line won't reach quite as far as, you know, like a Tom Brady or a Matt Ryan or any of these tall quarterbacks, a Josh Allen, but I think he can get it a few inches over. So I thought that was interesting, but still proud of him. I think the biggest thing, the most positive thing I feel about the Seahawks from yesterday is our new defensive coordinator, Clint Hurt. He's a huge upgrade. And he said in press conferences in the week prior, we're going to be more aggressive. And that's one thing that the Seahawks defense had lacked for 2 years completely, was aggressively getting after the ball. And I thought they did a fantastic job. One thing, too, is we had one rookie corner, one corner that has never had a starting position besides subbing for an injured player. I think those are the only major rookie roles on defense. Our offensive line was full of rookies. Both our guards, our tackles were rookies. So, you know, I think the big thing is Seahawks are a really young team right now. And I think they showed a lot of potential in last night's game. But I'm still I'd rather stay in the rebuild. That's the thing. It's like, oh, maybe Geno could be good. Maybe we don't need to draft a quarterback. Maybe the Seahawks are still good, guys.
You guys are going to win the division, man.
Seahawks are saying, but dude, and honestly, it might be hard to stay in a rebuild and have a bad record with how bad our division is looking. But we need a high draft pick. We need to get another star, or not much is going to happen.
It all remains to be seen.
Oh, and by the way, Jamal Adams injured. We don't have a time frame on that, but I'm like, not even a big deal, man. We've gone so long without him, and you know.
Yeah.
Did you guys see him? Like, he had another interception opportunity, and it bounced off of his face mask again.
Yeah, that was rough.
Dude, I don't know what's wrong with that guy. Like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, they just gotta switch him to edge rusher. It's not a safety.
Yeah.
To Pete Carroll's credit, he is good at developing young talent.
Yep.
So there is a shred of optimism for Seattle. I mean, they cleaned house, and that just might be playing to Pete Carroll's strengths, which might not be the best NFL move, but and also, you know, a lot of that, to Pete Carroll's credit, is, and just from circumstances, he knows Russell Wilson really well. He watched him for 10 years and knows all his strengths and weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
He likes to roll out and do a little backyard football with his two, star wide receivers, Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. So he took away Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy for the most part. And I feel like the screens were forced because you don't see it. Russell Wilson do that a lot in Seattle just because, Pete Carroll took away what he likes to do. And so they had to change how they approached it, because it wasn't at all really Russell Wilson's game. And I did notice that with those receivers, like Russell Wilson doesn't usually throw to running backs that often. he likes to throw it out to the wideouts more often, and so I do think it was just a matchup problem, and that was it. It was just a wise old sage, knowing his student inside and out, and just being able to take advantage of that. And
that's a good point. I mean, Russell Wilson's weakest point is when he's scrambling to the left side of the field, and that's what they kept trying to do over and over and over. And that's most quarterbacks' weakest point. But you want
to be running on the opposite way of your throwing arm, so that makes it tougher. But it was a mix of surprisingly good coaching from Pete Carroll, which we haven't seen in a while, and just coaching on the Denver side, and the difference was 1 point. So that just tells you the talent side of it too, where like one can be coaching great and the other terrible, but still just be the difference of a point. The Broncos just have so much more talent than Seattle. So, and Geno, while he's serviceable and you can like him for this season, but he's no one's long-term answer.
Yeah.
And so
I am, and maybe it's just because I'm trying to be an optimist, but I am more excited after last night to watch the Seahawks this season, because I do think there's some players on the Seahawks that do show potential. Some of these rookies could be really good. So that's exciting, but I think that was the Broncos game in so many ways, and it just sucks that bad calls were made and penalties. I think the penalties is one thing you guys can fix really easily, and probably will. Honestly, I giggled because it's like, 3-4 years ago, the Seahawks were the most penalized team in the league for like 2 or 3 years in a row. So I was like, oh man, Russell's very familiar to Russell. But I don't think that's something that lost.
Well, look, my last thought, and then since this is the last game of the week, I guess this could round out my thoughts on everything. But last thing I'll say about the game, not even about the game actually. Look, Seahawks, Seattle's, the 12s booing Russell Wilson right at the start. Disrespectful, man. Like, give me a break, yo. I mean, Peyton Manning got a standing ovation when he went back to Indy. Tom Brady is getting a tribute to him when he went back to New England. The only Super Bowl you guys won came from Russell, and he almost got you two, and it would have happened if not for the coach you have who's still there.
Hey,
I just think it was so overblown, especially with the report that you guys have been trying to trade Russell Wilson for years. I was telling everyone around me while it was happening, and it was, again, the boos were so loud, I was audibly saying to everyone who would listen, you guys traded him away. He was traded. And you've tried to trade him for years.
You got to understand, the Seahawks fan base is pretty retarded. I'd like to look at it right now. It's kind of like the political situation in the United States, where we're all Americans, we're all Seahawks fans, but we've got varying opinions, because I would not have been booing Russell Wilson. And maybe I'm more informed, or I've done more research, or just paid attention to the situation a lot more, but I'm on Team Russell. I am on Team Russell as far as how things were handled, and how the Seahawks treated him over the years. I honestly was semi rooting for the Broncos going into that game because I think Russell deserved a win from just the breakup and how it turns out he's been treated for a long time and they've attempted to trade him. I just think, honestly, in an ideal world, Pete Carroll gets fired soon or fires himself, which obviously will never happen, but I would not have been booing. And I think the fans that those are the bandwagoners that started being Seahawks fans when we started getting good and had like the Legion of Boom and stuff. And
so when Russell Wilson was quarterback, that's when they started being fans.
Well, we all know that's what happened. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, they're just mad that fans is gone.
Yeah, dude. Most of these fans only know Seahawks Russell Wilson. So obviously when Russell Wilson leaves, they're like, boo.
It's just ungrateful, man. Bunch of ungrateful little babies.
It was disgraceful, man.
Grateful. It's important to win those
during the game.
For Russell Wilson, like Tom Brady had to go into New England and beat Belichick, and he did that. And like people look, and obviously he won a Super Bowl too, but people look at it differently now. Tom Brady is like the god in New England. Belichick was like, oh, maybe it was Brady. You got to win the divorce. Now it's like Russell Wilson had that opportunity, and he,
I think it was his. He had poor coaching that ruined it for him.
Yeah, I know. But it's all perception. It's optics, Yeah. So, like now it's like now he's got to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Because in the head-to-head, the coach, the quarterback, and that looks bad, and Pete Carroll, gets to ride the credit train for a little longer, maybe not much longer, but he gets his moment in the sun now, and that's kind of bitter. That's something you go to be a little sad about.
Dude, the whole game and the rest of the day, I was thinking like, dude, that was probably like just emotionally tough for Russell to come back and get booed like that. Like,
yeah,
not that he played bad or anything, but if he did, I wouldn't have blamed him because, I think a lot of people knew he was going to get booed, and people were probably telling him he was going to get booed, and maybe he was expecting it, but then to come out and, having that experience where it's like, wow, everyone hates me. Like, everyone that used to love me hates me, and they don't fully understand the situation I was in. Like, I would have been affected negatively, and I would have been very emotional and in a bad emotional state throughout that game. So props to him for, obviously playing a pretty dang good game. Dude, that just sucks. I was very disappointed.
Yeah, there were a lot of things like Parker said that weren't his fault, like the fumbles.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are you going to do about that? And then, I don't know, maybe should Russell Wilson have fought a little harder to stay on the field, 4th and 5? I don't know.
That's a tough one because, him and this coaching staff have a new relationship, and I'm sure he's thinking, well, I want this to be healthy and I want us to trust each other. So it kind of sucks where they're like, Russell, we don't trust you. And he could have fought back saying, well, I don't trust your calls, but that's not what you want to do, So I'm sure he was being Russell, being the bigger man, being like, all right, hey, you're the head coach. Like, that's what you want to do. I'm going to let you do it. It just sucks.
Yeah. I think we lost Parker.
I think you're right.
He's
smirking for the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, and I haven't heard him either.
Yeah.
Just a shame. Because I was going to ask, as a final question, like,
he's back.
Oh, there he is. He's back.
I hear you guys saying I wasn't there, and I was responding, but you couldn't hear me, apparently. I was like, I'm here.
I thought, like, it's weird. I feel like Parker should have butted in at some point, but I'm like, he's just really just sitting there, really soaking up this conversation.
I was there, like, no, wait, guys, listen. No, this is how it is.
Yeah.
No, but I didn't have too much to say. You guys were all right about everything you were saying. I was agreeing, head nodding. You guys are spot on.
Yeah. I do have one question that came to mind much earlier in this Broncos-Seahawks conversation about the future of Nathaniel Hackett. If things aren't going well, is it possible that he would get fired either at the end of the season or even mid-season? Or do you think no matter what, they give him at least one more year, like no matter the outcome?
Timeline, I don't know, but this I do know. If it's bad, like really bad, it'll be Hackett will take the fall and not Russell Wilson.
Oh yeah,
because they have committed to Russell Wilson. Even I'm saying, even if it was Russell Wilson, it's not going to be Russell Wilson's fault. That would, I don't know. If I'm expecting good things going forward from this coaching staff. I think they can work it out and things are going to be fine. But if it was seriously underwhelming, if we have a losing season, I could see the coaching staff getting fired this year. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with the new ownership, new star head coach. They're not gonna wait on their hands too long to make a change. I don't think mid-season makes any sense. I don't think it ever really makes sense unless your coach is a degenerate like Urban Meyer.
Yeah.
That one makes sense. That makes sense.
But end of the season, if it's bad enough, it could happen. It's definitely not outside the realm of possibilities. I don't think he has any guaranteed amount of time because he has no goodwill. He's a first-time head coach. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So it's just to prove it.
That's true.
So, anyway, that's what that's round out that long conversation, and that's the Monday night game. Let's round out week 1. We're head towards week 2, baby. Let's get ready. Everything's going to be different next week. Cowboys are going to just be amazing with Cooper Rush. Broncos are going to win big at home. And the Seahawks, everything's different week 2. You guys are going to lose now. So,
49ers, we might win week 2, too. Based on how the 49ers played and Trey Lance, we could win it.
Yeah, you can.
But that's the thing. Do I want us to win it? I don't know.
But let me just ask you guys whether it's true or not. The same lesson we always learn every week 1 that we seem to forget every offseason. Anyone can lose to anyone on any given day in the NFL.
Yeah.
And we spend the whole offseason talking about teams and building up Super Bowl champions or playoff teams to be just so much better than those who are, early round picks. But every week 1, we're reminded, look, we don't know anything. The Houston Texans are taking the Indianapolis Colts into overtime. Seahawks are beating up on the Broncos. It's that's what makes the NFL fun. I can't wait.
I agree with you, except for one circumstance. Eli Manning does not lose to Tom Brady.
That's true.
Super Bowl at least.
Yes, that's and on that particular Sunday in February. Not anyone can beat just anyone.
No. Eli has beat Tom multiple times, guys.
He has. But
I guess he's lost to him before.
I say that because in the undefeated season 1 in 2007, Tom Brady did beat Eli Manning in the regular season that same season.
Well, it was from then on. From that Super Bowl on. Right.
So, yeah.
Amen.
Amen to that. Like I said, the Rams, Packers, and then I'd add the Broncos to pump the brakes on being bad. And then to bring it back full circle, like, I feel like the Buffalo Bills are just going to disappoint everybody. I feel like I've seen it before. Like,
I didn't expect that take with your declaration
Wow.
early on in the
No.
video.
like I did. Yeah, I know. I want to make it clear that I like the text I sent. I don't think the Bills will win the Super Bowl. I still think that, but the Bills are a whole lot of fun to watch, and I'm going to be rooting against them and for them at the same time because I feel like it's more fun to root against them. I don't know why. Sometimes, but like it's one of those teams. It's one of those situations. It's a trap thing to like be the sure like everyone's favorite to win the Super Bowl. Josh Allen's a lot better than Cam Newton, but they went 15-1, and Cam Newton seemed unstoppable that year. Won the MVP, lost. The Patriots went undefeated, lost the Super Bowl. The Vikings have gone 15-1 multiple times and were favorites and lost. So they were some of the greatest teams to not win a Super Bowl. Even in so I'm just like I feel like it's a trap.
All right.
All right.
The trap.
This will be a storyline to keep up with weekly.
Man, I am not going to let you forget this declaration.
I thought we were going to escape a year where Austin is getting roasted for his bad takes on the Bills. I thought this wasn't that year.
I'm gonna suffer with it. I like instead of changing my mind, which like a logical person would, because I will admit Josh Allen is elite and everything, but I feel like it's a trap. It's a trap.
It's a trap.
It's the 15-1 Panthers. It's the too big to fail. Just something's gonna go wrong. Something will go wrong. That's probably not even Josh Allen or anybody's fault. Something will go awry.
That could happen. I'm excited for next week. When we meet back up next Tuesday after week 2, you know what they say? One data point is what it is. It's 1 point. But after week 2, we got 2 data points for each team, and that makes a line. So we're gonna start to see the trajectory of some of these teams. So I'm excited. Bring on week 2. Let's go.
All right. That was fun. It's good to be back.
It is.
Appreciate everyone watching, listening, and we'll be back on next week to talk about week 2, and we'll see you then.
Peace. Thomas.
Wait.
Oh.
I'm just like, I'm out.
I was like, Thomas took that piece quite literally. All right, bye.
I
guess.
thought you were supposed to say later. I thought that was your thing.
Oh, is that my frick?
Either way, whatever.
Yeah, I didn't.